Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to the World Chess Championship in 2023, the most important chess event of this year. Be prepared, this will be a beautiful month for us to watch. We'll see the battle between Nepomniachtchi and Liren. So Nepo deserved his right here to play because he won the previous candidates event. Nepo won out 2 times in a row the FIDE candidates tournament. In the last World Chess Championship match we know that he lost against Magnus Carlsen, but now he has a big chance against Liren, maybe to become the world champion in chess. Liren, on the other hand, deserved his right here to play because Magnus Carlsen refused to play, refused to defend his title against Nepo again. So maybe for the first time in chess history, we'll see a Chinese world champion in chess, which will be also incredible for the chess community of China. So this will be a tough battle of 14 rounds. We can expect really many Rui Lopez games, Italian games, Queen's Gambit decline games. Probably no one will start to do risky things in the beginning of this chess event. Probably they play solid openings, positional openings, not so many risky ideas. Maybe when you lose the game, then we'll see more tactical battles, more sharper ideas in the opening stage. But in the beginning, as I said, we can expect really the solid openings. So be prepared. This will be not maybe the most attractive chess event, but it will be really beautiful, epic battle between Liren and Nepomniachtchi. So the format that they play is first of all you have 1/2 hour for the first 40 moves. Then for the next 20 moves you get 1 hour on the clock, but then from move 60 you get another 15 minutes, but then you have also increment, you get 30 seconds per move. So basically you cannot run out of time, but in the beginning you play without increment, so you have to be really fast in the first 40 moves. So it could cause you maybe some wild lines if you don't know what you're doing in the beginning. So it could be risky to play the first 40 moves. So we are starting now this match with a beautiful game from the round 1 between Nepomniachtchi and Liren. Nepo played now with the white pieces, Liren played with the black pieces. As I said, we can expect now a solid opening. They played a beautiful Rui Lopez game. So let's see now what happened. The game ended a couple of minutes ago. So here Nepo opened with the move e4. We have now the move e5 by Ding, knight to f3, knight to c6, and after move bishop to b5, we have the Rui Lopez, the Spanish game is on the board. So we have the Murphy defense with the move a6, bishop to a4, and after move knight to f6, we have now kingside Carlsen, bishop to e7. So we have now the closed Spanish game, the closed Rui Lopez, and many things you can do now. Basically, one of the best ideas is, of course, to maybe play something like rook to e1, d3. But now Nepo goes into this delayed exchange variation with the move bishop to c6. So as I said, this is a clear idea. After move bishop to c6, you at least create some kind of a structural weakness. Look at this, the pawn structure is messed up. So in my opinion, nothing spectacular, but as I said in the beginning, no one wants to do any risks. No one wants to play wild openings, wild tactical games. So now after move bishop to c6, Nepo is saying, okay, I have an equal game. I have at least caused you some positional damage. Here you have a double pawn here on the c file, but of course the downside for white here is that black is continuing with the beautiful bishop pair. So in the game, rook to e1 played by Nepo. Of course, if you play something like a knight to e5, then of course knight to e4 is going to happen. So both players would then trade off the pawns in the center of the board, which is in my opinion even a better continuation for black, because now the center is exploding. There are no pawns in the center of the board. It's an open game, and of course then the bishops love more the open game. So in my opinion, this is something that white should try to avoid. So in the game, after move rook to e1 that Nepo played, we have now knight to d7. Many things you can do here. You can play queen to d6, bishop to g4 is also an option. Knight to d7 probably the most solid way, with the idea to reroute the knight maybe then afterwards to c5. But of course, first of all, we have to protect our weak pawn on e5. So in the game, d4 played by Nepo. We have e takes d4, queen to d4, and we can notice now already after the trades of pawns in the center of the board that we have here an imbalanced pawn structure. So we have now a 4 versus 3 situation here on the king side by white. We have here a 4 versus 3 situation by black. So black has a slight advantage here on the queen side, but the downside of course for black is that black has double pawn. So it's much harder for black to create here passer, to create a pass pawn on the queen side. On the other hand, it's much easier for white to create a passer on the king side because of this pawn majority with this 4 versus 3 situation here on the king side. So we should not forget about this, because If this game reaches maybe the end game stage, maybe we can trade off more pawns or something. But if you have a similar structure like this, then of course white could have an advantage in the end game, because it would be much easier for white to create a passer, which is of course a good choice in the end game stage. So maybe here, when you create this kind of a structure, your goal, your strategic goal, should be to reach the end game stage very fast. So in the game, after move queen to d4, kingside Carlsen, played by Ding, we have bishop to f4. Notice there is a tiny little problem here in black's position. Although, as we said, you have the bishop pair, you have some opportunities, but the rooks are a little bit disconnected. The problem is now also the bishop on c8 is not playing. You have to lose many times, you have to reroute your pieces, you have to find new opportunities for your minor pieces just to get them somehow into the game. So far nothing spectacular, but if you don't do correct continuation, then of course you could have huge positional problems. So in the game, knight to c5. Here Ding is of course hoping to simplify the game by trading off the queens. We have now queen to e3, bishop to g4. Finally, this bishop comes now into the game. We have knight to d4. Of course, Nepo doesn't want to trade off his powerful knight here, because the knight was controlling very important squares in the center of the board. And now after move queen to d7, knight to c3, rook to d8, played here by Ding Liren. Now comes a very interesting choice by Nepo. In my opinion, a slightly unnecessary move, knight to f5. Knight to f5 leads, I think, immediately into draw situation, because Ding could have simply taken here. Bishop to f5, I think, is perfectly fine. After e takes f5, rook to e8, simply placing the rook where already the queen is. Now the queen is endangered a little bit by the possibility of the rook attack. Here we can maybe play something like g4, but look at this. Bishop to d6 simplifies the game. After queen to f3, bishop to f4, queen to f4, even queen to d6 is an opportunity. So in my opinion, already beautiful draw sequence here for black. And I think when you play the first game with the black pieces in such an important game, that I think you would be satisfied to play an easy draw. Then of course you can prepare then with the white pieces. So in my opinion, knight to f5 already, I would not say it's a mistake, it's not a blunder, it's not anything, it's not that this move is losing the game for white, but I think it's a too simplified line, because Ding Liren should have simply taken the knight, and then I think the game would end with a draw very easily. But Ding played knight to e6, and that's what I liked about Ding's game. He didn't want to play this solid lines. He's trying out to spice up the game with this move knight to e6. He's saying, I'll keep my chances with my bishop pair. I'll keep my chances because I have also the tension on the d file. This knight is bad because it's always controlled by the c6 pawn, but also here by the a6 pawn. You cannot really jump with your knight here on a good square. The knight on c3 is a little bit out of game. So as I said, good choice I think by Ding, although this move bishop to f5 immediately would lead into drawish game. So after move knight to e6, we have now knight takes e7. After queen to e7, notice a new strategic element. We have now the opposite color bishops middle game stage. So again, if this game reaches the fully endgame stage, if you could just imagine now the position here with only the bishops on the board, then in this opposite color bishops endgame, this should probably be a draw, which is of course again perfectly fine for black. But the downside, we have to say it, is this double pawn structure, and especially this pawn on c7 is a huge weakness in black's position. So the queen and the knight on e6 are a little bit overloaded always to the defense of the pawn on c7. So in the game, bishop to g3, played by Nepo, we have bishop to h5, f3, but trying to of course route a bishop on a more active square, also controlling here there's diagonal against the knight and also against the queen. So in the game, f6 with the same idea. Here Ding is trying to reroute the knight on the bishop, pardon me, on f7, then controlling also this very important diagonal on the board. So in the game, h3, h6, king to h2, improving a little bit the position of the king. Bishop to f7, rook from a to d1, competing of course against the rook on the d file, and now b6. And although Ding is playing solid lines here, he's playing solid chess, in my opinion, you should not place too many pawns here on dark squares, because I think you should keep your pawns as much as you can on light squares, because then the pawns cannot be attacked by this dark square bishop. This move b6, again, it's not a mistake or something, but it's kind of risky, because if you have too many pawns on dark squares, then it can be attacked. So already Ding is hoping to get some kind of an activity on the queen side. But as I said, this 4 versus 3 pawn majority is not so dangerous like this 4 versus 3 pawn majority on the king side. So now maybe a slightly risky move here by Ding, this move b6. So in the game we have a3 preventing the move queen to b4 by black. We have now a5, and after knight to e2, here we have rook to d1, rook takes d1, and now rook to d8 here played by Ding. He's hoping to simplify the game till the end. He's hoping now to get really a drawish endgame. So in the game now rook to d3, and now you see what Ding is doing. He's keeping again all of his pawns on dark squares, which is really risky. Of course, you have opportunities to play b5, c4, maybe even c6, but actually you will see that this is not the possibility because there is a huge positional problem. After move c5, now Nepo takes over. He plays now this very important queen to d2, and look at this. How are we going to defend this d-file attack? In the game, c6 was played by Ding Liren, and this was now, I think, the first really inaccurate move here by Ding Liren. c6 is now so risky because actually there is a huge problem now on the d-file. What Ding should have probably played here is rook to d3. After queen to d3, you can of course play king to f8, getting the king closer, or you can play immediately king to f8, just getting the king closer, because this game will probably reach the endgame stage very soon, and of course when that happens you want to have your king towards the center more, so that's why king to f8 or rook to d3 are perfectly fine moves. But the problem about this move c6 that Ding played is that actually after rook to d8, the problem is now you cannot play queen to d8. You cannot compete anymore on the d file, because look at this. As I said in the beginning, you place too many of your pawns on dark squares. Now, for instance, after queen to d8, knight to d8, bishop to c7, I think is even winning the game. So that's why after move rook to d8, you cannot take out with the queen, you have to take out with the knight. But now with queen to f4, look at this. Here I think Nepo is taking over. Nepo is getting the queen on b8, and then of course all of these pawns are really huge weaknesses in the position. So something went wrong here for Ding. As I said, this move c6 was so unnecessary because it opens simply the diagonal here. It opens here the opportunity for the queen to get here on this beautiful square on b8, and also you lost a little bit the battle here on the d file. So let's go let's go to this continuation. After rook to d8, knight to d8, queen to f4. Now b5 was played by Ding Liren, and see now this is already very dangerous by Nepo. The queen is very active. Many of these pawns are weaknesses now. From this point on, here white is really taking over. So in the game, king to h7 was played by Ding Liren. We have now bishop to d6, which is perfectly fine. You can also play bishop to c7, but after knight to e6, of course the bishop is hanging, you can maybe take it out, but after queen to d7 you could maybe lose also here a little bit the battle on the d file. So bishop to d6 is pretty solid, although bishop to c7 would be quite risky also here for Ding Liren. But after move bishop to d6, we have now queen to d7 by Ding, and now knight to g3. And this is perfectly fine what Nepo is doing here. He includes now a new attacker into the game. The knight is also covering the king now on h2. But the basic idea of this move, knight to g3, is to get the knight on f5. And from this square, the knight is controlling many squares on this side of the board, on Ding Liren's side of the board. And of course, there are maybe even some tactical threats if, of course, the knight gets on f5. But after move knight to e6, now Nepo makes maybe his first mistake in the game. He plays now the move f4. And it's not a mistake that causes him the game, but this was a little bit unnecessary what he did. A better idea, I think, is simply to play c3. First of all, you are controlling the square d4 for your opponent's knight, and now after something like c4, now you can get the knight on f5, and in my opinion, this is a perfect setup. I'm not saying this is winning, but look at this. All the white pieces would be on optimal scores. Bishop very active, knight very active, queen very active. King maybe also can be included somehow into the attack. Maybe we can also try some attacks here. So in my opinion, the only attacking chances in this position only white could have. Black would be simply on the defensive side here. So in my opinion, this move f4 was simply too risky, because Ding says now, okay, You had your opportunity with this move knight to f5. Now I'm playing h5. I will try to kick away your knight, and I have also this beautiful square d4. So that's why with the move f4, I think Nepo lost a very important tempo, because now he understands this position. He plays now the move c3, but now after move c4 that Ding Liren played, there are new chances for white. But actually what Ding should have played, I think, here is h4. You played the move h5, now just kicking away the knight, and look at this. This bishop could come into the game in a beautiful way. In my opinion, this will be, again, a good position for black, because Nepo allowed this sequence with the move f4. But after move c3, we have now the move c4 by Ding. In my opinion, he should have simply played the move h4. But again, nothing spectacular here. It's really a drawish position, so nothing spectacular happened with this idea. After move c4, we have now h4 by Nepo. He understood that h4 could happen here for black, so that's why he played this very important prophylactic idea. We have queen to d8, queen to d7. We have now bishop to e8 here after knight to f5. Finally, this knight is coming on the square. The knight should have come here on the square much earlier. It would be a simple different story. Now after move knight to f5, queen to d7, queen to b8. After a couple of moves by the queens were off the board, and basically this is now really drawish position. So the position is too simplified, so nothing spectacular can happen here, although there are tiny little ideas that you can do. But if black and white play the game correctly, I think this should be a perfect draw. But okay, let's see what happened. Knight to d4 played by Nepo. We have knight to b7, the e5, king to g8, very important move, getting the king closer to the action. We have our king to g3, white does the same. Bishop to d7, controlling the g4 square. If the king maybe gets closer to the action here, moving maybe to f5 to g6, then it could be dangerous. So important move here by Ding Liren. We have bishop to c7, attacking the pawn, and now beautiful endgame idea here by Ding, really the last drawish idea. He allowed simply here Nepo to take out the pawn, but now he played a very important move, king to f7, and he's now trying knight to d3 and picking up the pawn on b2. Basically, there's nothing that can be done against this idea. You cannot prevent it. The knight will come on d3 for sure, so it's simply a drawish line. So bishop to b4, now comes knight to d3. Here Nepo tried again new idea, because after bishop to e6, he tried now to spice up the game somehow like this, but nothing changes. We have bishop to d7, knight to d4, knight takes b2, king to f3, knight to d3, g3, and after knight to c1, king to e3. Both players here agree to a draw, which is in my opinion perfectly fine. We have 2 versus 2 situation on the queen side. We have 3 versus 3 situation on the king side. We have opposite color bishops, as I said in the middle of this video, that this could lead many times into a drawish endgame. So this happened. This is now the first game, and it ended with a draw. So, boom, great game, I think. Nothing spectacular, but this was, as I said, a testing game. Nothing dramatically changed in the outcome, but in my opinion, let's go to one of these critical moments. After move f4, I think this was the main inaccuracy here by Nepo. Basically, both of them didn't play mistakes or blunders. This was, I think, the main inaccuracy. A better idea was maybe c3, controlling the square d4, not allowing this knight to jump, and then after something like c4, you can have access to the f5 square. Many opportunities here for black. Although it's a tough game, probably this sequence would also lead into a drawish game, but in my opinion, this was the only chance for Nepo to spice up the game. Ding Liren defended this position very easily, and it was a fair draw in the first round. So, okay, this is it. In my opinion, this will be a tough battle. Who knows who will be the winner of the World Chess Championship in 2023? Ding is now playing with the white pieces, so anything can happen. Be prepared. This will be a long, tough battle between these two top grandmasters. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this analysis of the round 1 of the World Chess Championship in 2023. If you want to watch also some other content here on my YouTube chess channel, you can also check out my Commons to Chess Games Play by Computer series. Here's the link of our playlist, and see you soon with some more games from this beautiful chess event. What to say? Chess is the best, of course.